The massive crystalline dome stretched endlessly above, its transparent walls pulsing with veins of blue and silver light that carried whispered thoughts from across the galaxy. Ambassador Marcus Kane stood alone in the center of the circular arena, his black diplomatic uniform a stark contrast against the gleaming white floor that reflected the aurora of alien technology surrounding him. This was the Galactic Council's supreme chamber, the heart of an empire that governed over 3,000 worlds and 47 different species. The arena floor where Marcus stood was perfectly circular, measuring exactly 100 meters across, surrounded by towering platforms that rose like stadium seats into the shadows above. Each platform housed representatives from different corners of the galaxy, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. The Therian delegation occupied the eastern platforms, their insectoid bodies gleaming like polished obsidian as their compound eyes tracked every movement. To the south, the gaseous ethereals floated within their containment suits, their forms shifting between colors that had no names in human language. The crystalline builders hummed with harmonic frequencies that made the air itself vibrate, while the aquatic depths dwellers observed from their water-filled chambers with eyes the size of dinner plates. But it was the center platform that commanded attention. High Arbiter Velnara, a being so ancient that her species had been governing galactic affairs since before Earth developed multicellular life, presided over the assembly. Her form defied easy description, part energy, part matter, constantly shifting between states that human eyes could barely process. When she spoke, reality itself seemed to bend around her words. Human ambassador, her voice resonated not through the air but directly into the minds of everyone present. You stand accused of crimes that threaten the very foundation of galactic civilization. Marcus remained perfectly still, his weathered face betraying nothing. At 58, the former military strategist turned diplomat had negotiated with warlords and dictators across 3 continents. But this was different. This wasn't about trade agreements or border disputes. This was about whether humanity would be allowed to exist as an independent species or be relegated to the status of a monitored, restricted civilization. The charges materialized in holographic detail above the arena floor, each accusation glowing with ominous red text that rotated slowly for all to see. Unprovoked military aggression, violation of 17 interstellar trade agreements, deployment of unknown weapons technology, complete destruction of a Veltar mining consortium without warning. But it was the final charge that made the chamber fall silent. Evidence of predatory behavior incompatible with galactic civilization. The Veltar hegemony has presented compelling evidence. High Arbiter Velnara continued, her form shifting to a deeper shade of purple that suggested displeasure. Your species destroyed an entire mining operation in the Kepler 442 system. 17 ships, 4,300 souls, without warning, without mercy. The holographic display shifted, showing sleek human vessels accelerating toward massive Veltar dreadnoughts. The size difference was shocking. Each Veltar ship was larger than a human city, their hulls bristling with weapons that could glass entire continents. Yet somehow, impossibly, the human fleet had emerged victorious. Representative Kothar of the Predator Species Council raised a scaled appendage, his reptilian features twisted in disgust. High Arbiter, the humans claim they are explorers, diplomats, scientists. Yet when challenged, they reveal the savage instincts of apex predators. They cannot control their violent nature. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber like ocean waves. The Serpentine Naga delegation swayed in unison, their scales shimmering with disapproval. Even the normally neutral silicon minds seemed to pulse with judgment, their crystalline forms resonating with harsh harmonic frequencies. Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm and measured despite the weight of accusation pressing down on him from all sides. Honored representatives, may I ask what you know about the Kepler 442 system? High Arbiter Velnara's form flickered with what might have been surprise. That is not relevant to under a human colony world, Marcus continued, his eyes never leaving the High Arbiter. 30,000 colonists, men, women, and children who had been terraforming that planet for 7 years, building schools, hospitals, agricultural centers, creating a new home for humanity among the stars. The chamber's lighting dimmed slightly as several representatives began accessing data feeds, their various appendages and sensory organs working to verify information they hadn't bothered to review before the hearing. The Veltar claimed salvage rights. Representative Kothar interjected, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. On an inhabited world, Marcus replied. They began strip mining operations while human children played in the settlements below. When our colonial authority attempted to establish communication, they were ignored. When our defensive platforms tried to interfere, they were destroyed. The silence stretched longer now, broken only by the soft humming of translation systems and the whispered consultations between delegation members. Marcus stepped forward, his movement deliberate and controlled. Every eye in the chamber tracked his progress as he approached the edge of the arena. You want to understand humanity's predator instinct? You want to know what happened when our people were threatened? Then let me tell you about the real battle of Kepler 442. He paused, letting his words settle over the assembly like a challenge. Because what your investigation found wasn't evidence of savage brutality. It was evidence of something far more dangerous. To those who prey upon the innocent, the chamber held its breath as Marcus prepared to reveal the truth that would either save humanity's place among the stars or confirm their worst fears about the species from Earth High Arbiter Velnara's form shifted to a shade of deep blue that suggested intense curiosity. Explain yourself, human. Marcus smiled, and for the first time since entering the chamber it reached his eyes. We showed them what happens when predators hunt in defense of their pack. What you discovered at Kepler 442 wasn't an unprovoked attack, Honored Arbiter. It was a rescue mission. The lighting in the chamber pulsed once, twice, and the assembled representatives leaned forward as one, suddenly aware that everything they thought they knew about the humans was about to change. The Veltar fleet wasn't destroyed, Marcus said quietly. It was disabled. Every ship, every crew member completely unharmed. And the technology we used to accomplish this feat is something that no species in this chamber has ever had to develop, because none of you have ever needed it. He turned slowly, addressing the entire assembly. You've never needed to rescue your young from a superior force without causing casualties. You've never needed to neutralize a threat while preserving life, because none of you evolved as pack hunters who protect their family groups at any cost. The implications of his words began to sink in, and the chamber's atmosphere shifted from judgment to something approaching awe. The humans hadn't just won an impossible battle. They had done so while adhering to principles that the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had never needed to consider. Marcus stood in the center of the arena, surrounded by beings whose technology could reshape worlds, whose civilizations spanned star systems, whose knowledge encompassed the secrets of the universe. And yet in this moment they were all looking to him for an explanation of something they had never encountered before. The predator instinct of a species that killed only to protect, and whose greatest strength lay not in their ability to destroy, but in their refusal to do so unnecessarily. 3 weeks before the judgment, the mining world of Kepler 442c hummed with the sounds of human civilization taking root. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of New Haven Colony, watching her 8-year-old daughter Sophia chase adapted butterflies through the settlement's central garden. The sight never failed to amaze her. Humanity had taken this barren rock and breathed life into it. The atmospheric processors worked tirelessly in the valleys between towering mountain ranges, their massive towers releasing carefully balanced mixtures of gases that slowly thickened the air and raised the temperature degree by precious degree. What had once been a lifeless world now supported grass, trees, and even small animals that had been gene-adapted to survive in the gradually improving environment. "Mom, look," Sophia called out, holding up a butterfly with wings that shimmered blue and gold in the pale sunlight. "I think this one likes me." Elena smiled, but her attention was divided. Through her earpiece, she could hear the constant chatter of colony operations. Supply schedules, atmospheric readings, mineral extraction reports from the southern continent where automated mining platforms harvested the lithium deposits that powered their terraforming equipment. "Contact." On the edge of the system came the voice of Lieutenant Torres from the communications center. "Multiple ships, configuration unknown. They're not responding to standard hails." Elena's smile faded. "How many ships?" 17 confirmed. "Large signature vessels, Admiral. Much larger than anything in our defensive grid." By the time Elena reached the communications center, the unknown vessels had entered orbit above their world. The main display showed sleek, organic-looking ships that seemed to pulse with their own internal light. Each vessel extended multiple appendages that ended in sophisticated industrial equipment. Mining equipment. Veltar design, Lieutenant Torres identified, pulling up the recognition database. Heavy industrial class. Admiral, those aren't exploration ships. They're planet processors. Elena felt ice form in her stomach. Planet processors were designed for one purpose: rapid resource extraction from uninhabited worlds. The industrial ships could strip an entire continent of valuable minerals in a matter of months, leaving behind nothing but scarred wasteland. Open all channels, Elena ordered. Full broadcast spectrum. She took a deep breath, knowing that the next few minutes would determine the fate of 30,000 human lives. Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Elena Rodriguez of the Kepler 442 Colonial Authority. You are in violation of human territorial space as established under the Galactic Council Accords. Please state your intentions and respond immediately. The response came not in words but in action. The Veltar ships began deploying mining platforms toward the planet's surface. Admiral, Torres called out, his voice tight with disbelief. They're targeting our lithium deposits. All of them. The northern continent, the southern ranges, even the small deposits near New Haven Colony. Elena watched the holographic display in growing horror. The Veltar weren't planning to take some resources. They intended to extract everything of value from the planet's crust. The atmospheric processors, the settlements, the carefully cultivated ecosystem that 30,000 colonists had spent 7 years building, would all be destroyed in the process. Get me Earth Command, Elena ordered. Emergency priority, and prep all defensive platforms for activation. The transmission took 18 minutes to reach Earth and another 18 for the response. In those 36 minutes, Elena watched the Veltar platforms descend toward her world like metallic vultures circling their prey. She tried to establish communication 17 more times. Each attempt was ignored. Admiral Stone's weathered face appeared on the screen, his expression grim with the weight of impossible decisions. Elena, I've been monitoring the situation. We're mobilizing everything we can. How long until the fleet arrives? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer would be devastating. 72 hours minimum. The nearest battle group is in the Proxima system, and they're dealing with their own crisis. We're pulling ships from 3 different sectors, but Elena... Stone paused, his eyes reflecting the burden of command. Even when they arrive, the Veltar fleet outmasses our available forces by 4 to 1. Elena closed her eyes. In 72 hours, the mining platforms would have completed their initial surveys and begun full-scale excavation. Once that process started, it would be unstoppable. The Veltar industrial technology could level mountains and drain oceans. A human colony would be erased as easily as dust in the wind. There's something else, Admiral Stone continued. Intelligence reports that the Veltar are claiming salvage rights under the Galactic Maritime Code. They're calling Kepler 442c an abandoned world. Abandoned? Elena's voice cracked with disbelief. Admiral, there are 30,000 people here. We have schools, hospitals, entire cities under construction. They say humans don't qualify as a recognized colonizing species under subsection 47 of the code. Something about atmospheric requirements and biological adaptation standards. Our legal team is reviewing the claim, but initial analysis suggests they might have found a loophole. Elena stared at the screen, understanding dawning like a cold sunrise. The Veltar weren't just stealing their resources. They were establishing a legal precedent that could strip humanity of its colonial rights throughout the galaxy. If this precedent stood, every human settlement beyond Earth would become vulnerable to similar salvage operations. Admiral, Elena said quietly, what are your orders? Stone was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a decision that would echo across human space. Protect your people, Elena, by any means necessary. Use every defensive system at your disposal. Make them pay for every meter of ground. And if the defenses aren't enough, then make sure the galaxy remembers what the Veltar did here. Make sure they understand that attacking human civilians has consequences. Stone's expression hardened. Elena, humanity has been underestimated since we joined the galactic community. Everyone sees us as newcomers, primitives with crude technology and simple minds. Perhaps it's time to correct that misunderstanding. The transmission ended, leaving Elena alone with the knowledge that her world was about to become a battleground. She walked to the observation deck where she could see Sophia still playing in the garden below. Her laughter carried on the artificially thickened air that smelled of growing things and hope. In the distance, she could see the lights of other settlements scattered across the valley. 30,000 souls who had traveled across the galaxy to build something beautiful on a dead world. Farmers and teachers, engineers and artists, children who had never known Earth but called this place home. Admiral, Torres called over the intercom. The Veltar platforms are beginning atmospheric entry. First landing zone appears to be the lithium fields near Sector 7. Elena watched the distant lights begin to dim as the massive alien platforms descended through the atmosphere like falling stars. Soon the mining would begin. Soon her world would start to die. But as she stood there watching the enemy approach the home her people had built with their own hands, Elena felt something cold and dangerous settle in her chest. The Veltar had made a critical error in their calculations. They had assumed that humans would react like any other species in the galaxy. They had assumed that humanity would surrender or fight conventionally. They had no idea what 30,000 humans were, capable of when their children were threatened. Elena keyed her communicator to address the entire colony. When she spoke, her voice carried across every settlement, every outpost, every farm and workshop on the planet. This is Admiral Rodriguez. You've all seen the alien ships. You know what they want to do to our world. But I want you to remember something. We didn't come here to hide. We came here to build. And if they want to take what we've built, they're going to learn why humans don't make good prey. In the garden below, Sophia looked up at her mother's voice echoing across the colony, her small hand still clutching the butterfly that had chosen to trust her. In 72 hours, the human fleet would arrive to face impossible odds against a superior enemy. But the Veltar had already made their first mistake. They had given humanity time to prepare. And as every predator in Earth's history had learned, sometimes the most dangerous prey was the kind that had nowhere left to run. Admiral James Stone stood in the war room of the UES Phoenix, humanity's most advanced dreadnought, studying the tactical display with the intensity of a chess master contemplating an impossible move. The holographic representation of the Kepler 442 system rotated slowly before him, showing 17 Veltar mining vessels positioned in perfect defensive formation around the contested world. The mathematics are brutal. Admiral, reported his tactical officer, Commander Lisa Park. Combined enemy mass approximately 4 million tons. Our available forces, 8 frigates, 3 destroyers, and this ship. Total mass barely 900,000 tons. In conventional engagement, we're looking at total annihilation within the first 10 minutes. Stone nodded grimly. The Veltar vessels weren't just miners. Intelligence reports confirmed that each ship carried enough firepower to level continents. Their shields could absorb direct hits from humanity's most powerful weapons, and their hulls were reinforced with materials that had been perfected over millennia of interstellar mining operations. What about their formation? Stone asked, his eyes never leaving the display. Park highlighted the enemy positions with red tactical markers. Classic defensive sphere, overlapping fields of fire, mutual support protocols, clear retreat vectors to jump points. Textbook perfect, Admiral. Whoever's commanding their fleet has been doing this for centuries. Excellent, Stone said quietly. That makes this significantly easier. The bridge fell silent except for the subtle hum of the ship's quantum processors. Stone's senior officers exchanged uncertain glances, wondering if their admiral had finally cracked under the pressure of leading humanity's most desperate mission. Sir? Park ventured carefully. Stone turned to face his crew, and for the first time during the briefing he smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. The Veltar have been studying human military doctrine since we joined the Galactic Council. They know our ship classifications, our weapon systems, our standard battle tactics. They've prepared countermeasures for everything they expect us to do. He gestured toward the display, where the enemy formation hung in space like a perfect, impenetrable fortress. But there's one aspect of human nature that no species in the galactic community has ever had to factor into their strategic planning. Stone moved to another console, calling up long-range sensor data of the Veltar fleet. Every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy evolved from prey animals, herd creatures, or ambush predators. They understand overwhelming force and perfect concealment. They don't understand the concept of persistence hunting. The display shifted, revealing detailed analysis of Veltar operational patterns. Ships rotating positions every few hours, crews cycling between duty shifts, the gradual orbital drift of vessels maintaining their defensive sphere while supporting mining operations on the planet below. 16-hour rotation cycle, Park reported, reviewing the data, standard Veltar naval procedure for extended operations, and their mining schedule. Continuous operations. They're working around the clock to extract maximum resources before our fleet arrives. Stone nodded approvingly, which means their crews are already operating under significant stress. Mining operations this scale require precise coordination between fleet elements and surface platforms. They can't afford to have their defensive formation disrupted, so they're locked into predictable movement patterns. He turned to his navigation officer. Lieutenant Hayes, plot an approach vector through the asteroid belt on the system's outer edge. Maximum stealth protocols using the belt's mineral composition to mask our electromagnetic signatures. Admiral, that routing will add 22 hours to our approach time, Hayes warned. Perfect. Stone's smile grew wider. We're not going to attack them, Lieutenant. We're going to hunt them. Over the next 28 hours, the human fleet conducted the most unusual military operation in galactic history. Rather than approaching the Veltar formation directly, Stone scattered his ships throughout the asteroid belt and outer planetary debris fields, using the system's natural geography to mask their positions. Each vessel moved independently, following carefully calculated paths that would keep them hidden from Veltar sensors, while gradually closing the distance to their target. The Veltar, locked into their defensive formation by the demands of their mining operation, could only watch their displays flicker with false contacts and electromagnetic ghosts. Their sensors detected movement throughout the system, but the readings were inconsistent, contradictory, impossible to track or target. They're getting nervous, Park reported from her station. 5 course corrections in the last 6 hours. They know we're here, but they can't establish our exact positions or numbers. Stone studied the readouts showing micro-adjustments in Veltar ship positions. The perfect defensive sphere was beginning to develop stress fractures as individual commanders made small movements to cover perceived threats. The formation's mathematical precision was slowly degrading under psychological pressure. Now we test their discipline, Stone murmured. He opened a communication channel to the entire Veltar fleet, broadcasting on all standard frequencies. When he spoke, his voice carried the calm confidence of a predator who had successfully cornered his prey. Veltar Fleet Commander, this is Admiral Stone of the United Earth Navy. You have 60 minutes to withdraw from human territorial space and cease all mining operations. After that deadline, we will remove you. The response came immediately, transmitted by what was clearly the Veltar Fleet Commander. The alien's voice was rendered into mechanical English by translation systems, but the arrogance was unmistakable. Admiral Stone, I am War Leader Nextel of the Veltar Hegemony. Your insignificant fleet poses no credible threat to our operations. We claim this world under legitimate salvage rights and will defend our claim with overwhelming force. Withdraw immediately or face annihilation. Stone looked around his bridge, meeting the eyes of each crew member. You heard him. 60 minutes. But instead of preparing for battle, the human fleet simply continued their patient positioning. The minutes ticked by in complete silence while the Veltar maintained their defensive formation. Weapons powered and shields raised, expecting an assault that never materialized. Admiral, Park called out softly. 30 minutes remaining. Stone acknowledged with a nod but made no move toward combat stations. Throughout the fleet, human crews remained at their posts, waiting with the infinite patience that had once allowed their ancestors to track prey across entire continents. 15 minutes, Park reported. The Veltar formation had tightened noticeably, their perfect sphere becoming more compact as nervous commanders pulled their ships closer together for mutual support. Their weapon systems were fully charged, their shields operating at maximum efficiency, their crews alert and ready for humanity's desperate assault. Time, Park announced. Stone opened the communication channel once more. War Leader Nextel, your deadline has expired, and in that moment, 17 separate explosions bloomed silently throughout the Veltar formation, as the human fleet finally revealed what they had been doing during their long, patient approach through the system's outer reaches. The explosions weren't the spectacular energy releases typical of space combat. Instead, they were brief, almost subtle electromagnetic pulses that appeared simultaneously across the enemy formation. Each Veltar ship shuddered once, their running lights flickering, and then stopped. No massive hull breaches, no cascading system failures, no dramatic destruction. The mighty Veltar vessels simply became motionless, hanging in space like enormous sculptures, their crews trapped inside ships that could no longer move, fight, or communicate. Quantum disruption charges deployed successfully, Park reported with quiet satisfaction. All enemy vessels are experiencing total system shutdown. No casualties, no permanent damage, but complete operational paralysis. Stone watched the results of humanity's most closely guarded military secret with grim satisfaction. The Veltar had prepared for human weapons, human tactics, human desperation. They had never prepared for human patience combined with technology specifically designed to exploit the interconnected quantum systems that every galactic civilization depended on. The mining platforms? Stone asked. Also disabled, Admiral. The platforms shared quantum link protocols with the fleet for coordination purposes. When we crashed the fleet systems, we took out their ground operations as well. Stone allowed himself a moment of relief. The colony was safe. 30,000 human lives had been preserved, and the Veltar's illegal mining operation had been stopped without firing a single conventional weapon. But his satisfaction was short-lived. This victory would have consequences that extended far beyond the Kepler system. Admiral, Park said quietly, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Martinez wants an immediate briefing. Stone accepted the transmission, and the familiar face of his commanding officer appeared on the main screen. Martinez's expression was troubled, and Stone could see other senior officers moving urgently in the background. War Leader Nextel stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Sovereign Harvester, watching his perfect formation of 17 mining vessels maintain their defensive positions around the human colony world. His four eyes tracked the tactical displays with the confidence of a commander who had overseen successful mining operations across 43 star systems. The humans were coming. Long-range sensors had detected their pathetic fleet moving through the outer system for the past day, trying unsuccessfully to mask their approach. Nextel's tactical officers had identified 8 small frigates, 3 destroyers, and 1 dreadnought that barely qualified as a capital ship by Veltar standards. Fleet status report, Nextel commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 3 centuries of military experience. All vessels maintain optimal defensive positioning. War Leader, responded his primary tactical officer. Overlapping shield matrices at 97% efficiency. Weapon systems fully charged. Mining operations proceeding on schedule with 64% of lithium deposits already extracted. Nextel's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. The human colony below was already beginning to show the effects of industrial mining. Atmospheric processors had gone offline as their power sources were systematically removed. Several settlements had been evacuated as massive excavation machines stripped away the terrain around them. The humans are maintaining their approach through the asteroid belt, continued the tactical officer. Current projection has them arriving in approximately 14 hours. Let them come, Nextel said dismissively. Their fleet mass represents less than 20% of our combined strength. We'll crush them within minutes of engagement and continue our operations. What Nextel didn't understand was that 14 hours was exactly what Admiral Stone needed. Throughout the Kepler system, 8 human ships moved with the patience of hunters who had learned their craft on the savannas of Africa millions of years before. Each vessel followed a carefully calculated path through the asteroid belt, using the natural electromagnetic interference to mask their true positions while slowly deploying specialized equipment that no galactic civilization had ever needed to develop. The quantum disruption charges were marvels of human engineering, each device no larger than a briefcase, but capable of generating precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses. Unlike the massive weapon systems that galactic military doctrine favored, these devices were designed for subtlety and surgical precision. Captain Sarah Walsh commanded the destroyer UES Relentless, tasked with placing charges on 5 Veltar vessels positioned on the formation's outer perimeter. Her ship drifted silently through a debris field 3 million kilometers from the enemy fleet, moving so slowly that her passage barely registered as motion on even the most sensitive sensors. Range to target Alpha, 2,000 kilometers, reported her navigator. Electromagnetic camouflage holding steady. Walsh studied the tactical display showing the massive Veltar mining ship ahead of them. The vessel was over 2 kilometers long, its hull bristling with industrial equipment and defensive weapons. Under normal circumstances, her destroyer would be obliterated by the alien ship's point defense systems before getting within 100,000 kilometers. But these weren't normal circumstances. The Veltar were locked into their defensive formation by the demands of coordinating mining operations across an entire planet. They couldn't risk disrupting their carefully orchestrated extraction schedule by chasing phantom contacts through the asteroid belt. "Deploy stealth drone," Walsh ordered quietly. A small, nearly invisible craft detached from the Relentless and began its silent approach toward the Veltar vessel. The drone was a masterpiece of human stealth technology, its hull composed of metamaterials that bent electromagnetic radiation around it like water flowing around a stone. Inside the drone's compact hull was a quantum disruption charge, specifically calibrated to interfere with Veltar command and control systems. Human intelligence had spent 3 years analyzing galactic technology, discovering that every advanced civilization in the Council relied on quantum-entangled computer networks for ship operations. It was an elegant solution that allowed near-instantaneous communication and coordination across vast distances. It was also a critical vulnerability that no galactic military planner had ever considered, because no species had ever developed weapons designed to exploit quantum entanglement protocols. "Drone approaching target hull," the navigation officer reported. "Magnetic attachment in progress." The tiny craft touched the Veltar ship's armored surface and immediately deployed microscopic clamps that secured it to the hull. To the alien crew inside, the attachment was completely undetectable. The drone's mass was too small to register on their sensors, and its electromagnetic signature was virtually non-existent. "Charge armed and synchronized with fleet network," Walsh confirmed. Moving to target beta. Across the system, 7 other human vessels were conducting identical operations. Each ship approached its assigned targets with the infinite patience of persistence hunters, deploying charges that would remain dormant until Admiral Stone gave the signal for simultaneous activation. The Veltar had no idea they were being hunted. Their sensors showed occasional false contacts in the asteroid belt, but nothing that registered as a coherent threat. Their defensive formation remained perfect, their crews alert and ready for the human fleet's inevitable desperate assault. "War Leader," came a voice from the communication station aboard the Sovereign Harvester. "We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet commander." Nexttool's mandibles clicked with amusement. "Put it through. Let's hear what the primitive has to say." Admiral Stone's voice filled the command deck, speaking with the calm confidence of someone who held all the cards in a deadly game. "Veltar Fleet Commander, this is Admiral Stone of the United Earth Navy. You have 60 minutes to withdraw from human territorial space and cease all mining operations. After that deadline, we will remove you." Nexttool's amusement turned to anger. The audacity of this primitive species was beyond comprehension. A fleet that barely qualified as a border patrol was threatening the Veltar hegemony's most powerful mining operation. "Admiral Stone," Nexttool replied, allowing his contempt to color every word. "I am War Leader Nexttool of the Veltar hegemony. Your insignificant fleet poses no credible threat to our operations. We claim this world under legitimate salvage rights and will defend our claim with overwhelming force. Withdraw immediately or face annihilation." The transmission ended and Nexttool turned to his tactical officer. "When the humans attack, I want them destroyed completely. No survivors. Let this be a lesson to any other species that thinks they can challenge Veltar authority." But as the minutes passed, no attack came. The human fleet remained hidden in the asteroid belt, their exact positions unknown, their intentions unclear. Nexttool found himself checking the chronometer, more frequently as the deadline approached. 30 minutes remaining, his tactical officer reported. The Veltar formation had unconsciously tightened, individual commanders pulling their ships closer together as they waited for an assault that seemed increasingly inevitable. Weapon systems hummed with stored energy, shields flickered at maximum efficiency, and crew members throughout the fleet prepared for battle. 15 minutes came the next report. Nexttool's 4 eyes scanned the tactical displays, searching for any sign of human approach vectors. The asteroid belt showed dozens of potential hiding spots, but his sensors couldn't penetrate the electromagnetic interference well enough to establish target locks. "Time," his tactical officer announced. The gay command deck fell silent as every crew member waited for Admiral Stone's next transmission. When it came, The human's voice carried the same calm confidence as before. War Leader Nextul, your deadline has expired. Nextul opened his mouth to respond with another contemptuous dismissal, but the words never came. Every screen on his command deck suddenly went dark. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows as backup systems struggled to compensate for a total failure of the ship's primary computer networks. But it wasn't a complete system failure. Life support continued to function normally. Artificial gravity remained stable, and the hull's structural integrity showed no signs of damage. Only the ship's ability to move, fight, or communicate had been destroyed. Report, Nextul barked at his crew. But the response came from throughout the fleet as similar failures cascaded across all 17 vessels simultaneously. The quantum disruption charges had activated in perfect synchronization, each device generating an electromagnetic pulse specifically designed to crash the quantum-entangled computer networks that controlled Veltar ship operations. The pulses were too small to cause physical damage, but perfectly calibrated to corrupt the quantum signatures that every galactic civilization's technology depended on. Aboard the UES Phoenix, Admiral Stone watched the results of humanity's most closely guarded military secret with grim satisfaction. On his tactical display, 17 Veltar vessels drifted helplessly in space, their weapons silenced, and their crews trapped inside what had become nothing more than expensive metal tombs. Quantum disruption charges deployed successfully, Commander Park reported. All enemy vessels are... Ambassador Marcus Kane stood in the center of the Galactic Council's judgment chamber, as the storm of accusations swirled around him like a hurricane of alien voices. The holographic display above showed the disabled Veltar fleet, 17 massive vessels floating helplessly in space like monuments to humanity's hidden capabilities. Barbaric, screeched Representative Kithara of the Ethereal Collective, her gaseous form pulsing angry reds within her containment suit. They possess weapons technology that could paralyze our entire civilization. Unknown pulse systems that bypass every defensive protocol we've developed. High Arbiter Velnara raised one shifting appendage for silence, her ancient form flickering between states of matter as she addressed the chamber. Ambassador Kane, the evidence is overwhelming. Your species has demonstrated the capability to disable any fleet in the galaxy, using technology you deliberately concealed from this council. This constitutes a clear violation of the Technological Disclosure Accords. Marcus remained perfectly still, his weathered face betraying nothing despite the weight of judgment pressing down on him from all sides. He had been waiting for this moment, preparing for the revelation that would either save humanity's place among the stars or confirm the galaxy's worst fears about Earth's children. Honored representatives, Marcus began, his voice cutting through the chamber's cacophony. You are correct that humanity used previously unknown technology to disable the Veltar fleet, but you are wrong about everything else. The chamber fell silent, alien representatives leaning forward with mixtures of curiosity and suspicion. We did not use weapons of mass destruction. We did not deploy military technology that threatens galactic civilization. What we used was something far more dangerous to your established order. Marcus paused, meeting the multifaceted gaze of High Arbiter Velnara. We used adaptation. He gestured toward the holographic display where technical readouts showed the specifications of the quantum disruption devices. These instruments generate electromagnetic pulses, specifically calibrated to disrupt quantum-entangled computer networks. They cause no physical damage, create no casualties, and have no effect on biological systems. Your own scientists would call them impossible, because they exploit a fundamental assumption built into galactic technology. Representative Vorth of the Aquatic Dominion raised a webbed appendage, water rippling within his environmental suit. What assumption? That advancement means integration, Marcus replied. Every species in this chamber has built their technology around the principle of quantum entanglement. Your ships, your cities, your entire civilizations rely on instantaneous communication networks that span star systems. It's an elegant solution that has served you well for millennia. Marcus began walking slowly around the chamber's perimeter, his movement deliberate and measured like a teacher addressing students. But there's a fundamental vulnerability in that approach. When everything is connected, a single point of failure can bring down an entire system. Humanity discovered this weakness not through superior science or advanced research, but through catastrophic experience. Explain, High Arbiter Velnara commanded, her form shifting to a deeper shade that indicated intense interest. 400 years ago, human civilization nearly collapsed when our early computer networks were infiltrated by hostile artificial intelligences. We learned the hard way that complete connectivity equals complete vulnerability, so we developed isolated systems, redundant networks, and eventually, methods for exploiting the very connections that other species depend on. The chamber's bioluminescent walls dimmed as representatives absorbed this information. Marcus could see understanding dawning on several faces, or what passed for faces, among the assembled aliens. "You want to understand humanity's predator instinct?" Marcus continued, his voice gaining strength. "This is it. We don't just fight harder or strike faster than our opponents. We study our opponents. We learn their weaknesses, their dependencies, their blind spots, and then we exploit those vulnerabilities with precision and patience." He stopped in the center of the arena, addressing the entire assembly with the authority of someone who spoke absolute truth. Every species in this council evolved from prey animals, herd creatures, or ambush predators. You understand overwhelming force and perfect concealment, but humans evolved as persistence hunters. We tracked our prey across vast distances, wearing them down over days or weeks until they were too exhausted to resist. The silence in the chamber was complete now, broken only by the soft humming of environmental systems and translation protocols. The Veltar thought they understood human capabilities, Marcus said. They prepared for our weapons, our ships, our standard tactics. They never prepared for our willingness to spend 30 hours patiently placing tiny devices on their hulls, waiting for the perfect moment to disable their entire fleet without firing a single shot. High Arbiter Velnara leaned forward on her platform, her ancient consciousness focused entirely on the human before her. "Are you claiming that humanity poses no threat to galactic civilization?" Marcus smiled, and for the first time since the hearing began, it was genuinely warm. "No, honored Arbiter. I'm claiming that humanity poses exactly the same threat to galactic civilization that galactic civilization poses to humanity." Confused chatter erupted throughout the chamber as representatives struggled to parse this statement. "We are predators," Marcus said, his voice rising above the noise. "But we are not monsters. On Earth, predators serve a crucial function in maintaining ecological balance. They prevent any single species from overwhelming the environment. They strengthen their prey by eliminating weakness and disease. They maintain the health of the entire system." He gestured to the representatives surrounding him. "For millennia, this council has operated without any species capable of challenging established power structures. The strong have grown complacent. The weak have remained oppressed. And injustices like the Veltar's illegal mining operation have gone unchallenged because no one possessed both the capability and the motivation to act." Marcus turned to face High Arbiter Velnara directly. "Humanity doesn't want to destroy galactic civilization. We want to improve it. We want to be the predator that keeps the system healthy, that challenges corruption and prevents the strong from exploiting the weak." The Veltar learned this lesson at Kepler 442. Representative Kothar of the Predator Council raised his scaled head. "You speak of balance, human, but your actions demonstrate overwhelming superiority. How do we know you won't use this power to dominate rather than protect?" Marcus considered the question carefully before responding. "Because our greatest strength isn't our ability to destroy, Representative Kothar. It's our refusal to destroy unnecessarily. At Kepler 442, we had the capability to obliterate the Veltar fleet completely. Instead, we chose to disable them, preserving over 4,000 lives while achieving our objective." He paused, letting the implications sink in. That choice wasn't made from weakness or hesitation. It was made from the understanding that true predators only kill when necessary. The rest of the time, they simply remind the ecosystem who sits at the top of the food chain. High Arbiter Velnara stood slowly, her form stabilizing into something approaching solid matter. "The Council requires time to deliberate these revelations. Ambassador Kane, you have given us much to consider." Marcus bowed formally. "I await your judgment, honored Arbiter. But remember that predators are only dangerous when they're hungry. Keep the galaxy well fed with justice and fairness, and humanity will be content to watch from the shadows." As the representatives began filing out to begin their deliberations, Marcus remained in the center of the arena. Around him, the chamber's walls pulsed with new patterns of light as the Council's collective consciousness grappled with a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics. The crystalline builders hummed in harmonic frequencies that suggested deep contemplation. The gaseous ethereals swirled in patterns that indicated intense debate. Even the ancient silicon mines pulsed with computational cycles that hadn't been seen for centuries. Hours passed as the deliberations continued in chambers beyond the main arena. Marcus waited patiently, understanding that the galaxy was coming to terms with the emergence of a new apex predator in their midst. The question wasn't whether humanity possessed the power to reshape galactic civilization. The question was whether they could be trusted to use that power responsibly. Finally, High Arbiter Velnara returned to her platform, followed by representatives from all 47 council species. Her form had stabilized into something resembling crystalline energy. Pulsing with the weight of collective decision. "Ambassador Kane," she began, her voice carrying across the chamber with the authority of eons. "The Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's status in galactic civilization." Marcus straightened, knowing that the next words would determine whether his species would be welcomed as guardians of galactic peace or feared as its greatest threat. The Council recognizes that humanity has demonstrated capabilities that fundamentally alter the balance of power in our civilization. However, we also recognize that your species has shown remarkable restraint in the application of these capabilities.